The second Batman Deadpool crossover comic is finally here by Grant Morrison and Dan Mora, and this comic has some characters you might have never expected to make a return and a first appearance. So let's talk about this issue of Batman Deadpool. Once upon a would you just imagine, Anthropomorpho's Big Bang Bang Singularities bar, two lonely universes bopping solo in the void, until a glance askance in the cosmic dance became a chance for romance, and one thing led to another. And what we see is the two cosmic entities from Marvel and DC, Eternity for Marvel and Kismet for DC. They are the personification of these universes meeting one another and kissing. And we find ourselves in Gotham City with a man crying, saying, "I can't believe this has happened. It's all my fault. Batman, I know you're there. Just come on out. I know I did wrong. I deserve whatever I got coming, but not this, not her. They used her to get to me, and I failed her. Now she's dead, and it's all my fault." And he starts crying to Batman, saying, "This was our song. We were gonna get married. This is my fault. There's nothing we can do, not even you." And Batman puts his hand on his shoulder, saying, "Maybe not, but maybe you can use your eidetic memory to tell me exactly what happened. And I'll make sure Waller's people don't get away with this." And then we find ourselves in Aia, Greece. And we hear Batman saying, "Whatever you do not engage until we know what we're dealing with. Victor Gover said this was the last known location of the target, but somebody got here ahead of us. Wait for my signal." And for those of you who don't know who Victor Gover is, who was the man we were speaking to in that last page, is actually Sportsmaster in the DC universe. And we learned the person they're dealing with is probably someone with reality warping abilities, and as of right now, Checkmate is doing a bunch of errands for Amanda Waller. And they've already paid the price because something has killed these creatures around them. But then, Batman notices a batarang on the wall, saying, "Wait, that looks like a batarang, but not one of mine." And we see a hand reach out to him. And what we see at the bottom of this page is that Eternity and Kismet are going at it. And then we see Deadpool holding Batman's body riddled with arrows, saying, "Dear Lord, I tried to warn him something like this would happen." But of course, it's Deadpool, so we find ourselves in chapter 1, Merc Mouth Meta, with Deadpool saying, "Don't worry, it's just a teaser for the future. There's an explanation. There's context to this. We're not there yet, but we're gonna get there. Relax." And we see him killing some cartoon ninja monsters, saying, "Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the waters. I'll show you how it all went down. Crossed his guy's heart and hoped to die at dawn." And Deadpool clears out the area of his enemies and he starts looking around, saying, okay, that's one wall, 2 walls, 3 walls. Oh God, oh my God, I can see you. And Deadpool turns to look at us, the readers, breaking the 4th wall. But that's not the coolest thing about this moment. He does break the 4th wall, that's awesome. But this is actually a reference to Grant Morrison's work with Animal Man, when Animal Man breaks the 4th wall. Loved seeing this, definitely took me by surprise, but love it. But then Deadpool says, "Oh, maybe I should come back later, or maybe you'd prefer me to pose." Talk about mixed signals. Hey, spawn of Satan. What's with all this ticking? And we see a bunch of floating red ducks start quacking towards him, causing a very large explosion. And we see some familiar boots step next to Deadpool's head, and he says, "Hey, you expect a guy like me to be in this budget version of hell, but what kind of sickening thing did you do to end up here?" And we see it's Batman holding both of Deadpool's feet, saying, "Well, I hope you'd have those answers. I'm sorry, but I think these are yours." And Deadpool takes his feet back, letting his healing factor put them back together. And we see behind them a giant white owl that says, "Play attention." Something to notice for now. And Batman says, "Healing factor looks painful." And Deadpool replies saying, "It is, yeah, very. I'm a smile through your heart is breaking kind of guy. But hey, thanks for asking. It confirms something I've been wondering about you." And Batman says, "Funny, I've been wanting to ask you the same thing. Does the word Deathstroke ring any bells for you?" As Batman plays on a piano and he notices the key of C and the key of D repeating. And Deadpool behind Batman says, "Deathstroke, let me guess. It's a technical term in Olympic snuff swimming? A lethal self-abuse technique from the Kama Sutra?" And Batman smiles saying, "Not a Slade Wilson then. Good." and he blocks Deadpool's attack, flipping him over through the piano. And Batman says, you had me worried for a second, but this place doesn't add up. This is a hyper-real hallucinatory edge to everything. And Deadpool tells us, guess who's headlining this crossover? And we see Batman and Deadpool head down the staircase to like a speakeasy bar. But before I explain some of the context to the scene, this speakeasy bar place is just Marvel DC Easter egg heaven. You see a few things like a Superman logo light next to the fist of the Hulk, but there's two things in here that's actually really insane on top of a couple other things, but I gotta mention these two. The word amalgam is on the wall as an LED light. Now the word amalgam is the word used for combination characters that Marvel and DC did in the past. For example, Spider-Boy was an amalgam of Superboy and Spider-Man. But that's not all. On the wall, we see Spider-Man and Superman looking at one another. Now that is a reference to the first Marvel DC crossover back in 1976, Superman versus Spider-Man. I really hope you guys are liking these fun facts because this story is filled with them, so I feel like I have to cover them as we're talking about it. But back to the story, Batman says this reminds him of the labyrinth with the Court of Owls. And Deadpool says, I'd say we've been no-clipped into liminal Las Vegas, but that's because my cultural references are marginally more up to date than yours. Look, you got me all wrong. I had to make sure you're not some weirdo in a cosplay. And Batman says, by cutting off my head, you carry weapons that kill people. You have a bad guy name. And Deadpool says, it's more of a morally ambiguous anti-hero name. Somehow I do way more good than bad, and you were fine with this before. And Batman says, multiverse then? Some copy or echo of the original? If you're not Slade Wilson, not Deathstroke. And Deadpool gets mad saying, stop saying that. It's like you made a new obscenity. I'm Wade Wilson. Aid. Deadpool, I'm totally my own thing. I thought we moved on to the grudging mutual respect segment of our relationship arc. You won't hear me saying you must be some version of, Moon Knight or Nighthawk, Hawk Owl. And Batman says, I'm Batman. But they decide they need to work together to figure out what's going on, or in Deadpool's words, like the Spice Girls. And as they're pedaling together in the floating swan, Deadpool says something pretty dang funny. Can I say something? My incessant insane chatter usually drives men insane, but you're a tough gig. And Batman replies with probably one of the funniest things. I fought crime alongside a hyperactive kid for years. My arch enemy is a murderous, disfigured clown. Have you been talking this whole time? And as they continue, they start to realize there's some singing going on. They are not alone in this place. And Deadpool says, yeah, my spidey senses are tingling in places medical science refuses to name. And I don't even have a spidey sense. But we're trapped with no memory, and it's giving uncertainty. Am I the bold and are you the brave? I'm Batman. I'm a detective. I look for clues, patterns. They're all around us, and I have a theory. And Batman tries explaining the connection between the piano, the chess, the Florida map. What word specifically links them all? And Deadpool gets mad at him saying, who do you think I am? Just explain it. And then Batman adds basketball to the list of things. And Deadpool says, no, I cannot dunk. You found my kryptonite, my Achilles apple, my Adam's heel. How about you play sports, you muscle-bound privileged jock? I'm here to take lives, okay? And then we see the two of them start fighting those cartoon ninja characters from earlier, with Deadpool saying, hey, I respect your impractical code against killing bats, but these are evil cartoons, so they don't have feelings like us. And Batman yells at Deadpool saying, Deadpool, quiet. I don't know who you are, but you know Batman? And he replies with saying, I know this much. Batman has something stronger than adamantium, more powerful than a locomotive. Batman has plot armor, buddy. And Batman says, okay, let me put my theory to the test then. And he jumps in front of Deadpool, taking a bunch of arrows into his body. And Deadpool holds his face saying, ooh, that didn't work out. And Batman turns to him and says, not real, Deadpool. Inside a mind, the White Owl has us. And the first twist of this story is we see it's Cassandra Cain behind their crazy mind meld, saying that's the great White Owl to you. Oh boys, can't you just try a wee bit harder for Auntie Cassandra? And she kind of explains what's been going on. Deadpool has been searching for a weapon to finish off Cassandra once and for all. But she tricked the world's greatest detective into finding that item first. But no matter how deep she goes into his mind, she can't find that item or the truth about it. But then her hand controlling Batman gets hurt, saying, ouch, how many Batmen are there? And Batman's about to regain consciousness and she goes back to his mind. And she tells Deadpool to bring him back, that she wants that weapon. And Deadpool says, don't die, Batman. If it's the last thing I do, I won't let you die, Caped Crusader. And we see Deadpool trying to carry Batman to a special location, saying he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Context, see? This guy is big. Lucky I didn't get the absolute Henry Moore sculpture edition. And what Deadpool finds is the Lazarus Pit, saying it's one of the last ones hidden behind the wall of the creepy petting zoo. And it's the orphan's annual trip too. See, I hope nothing goes wrong. And this might be the only thing that could save Batman. He might come back a little crazy and maybe even naked. And Deadpool grabs Batman, throwing him into the Lazarus Pit, hoping for the absolute best. And the cool thing about this room is the fact that it's not just Lazarus Pit. You see a bunch of character like profile photos in the background, like Black Flash standing next to Archangel. Sick. But Deadpool says, come on, slugger. And what pops out isn't just Batman, it's the amalgamation of Batman and Wolverine, Darkclaw. And he jumps out attacking Deadpool. And this amalgamation of Darkclaw was created back in 1996. So seeing it return is awesome. And as Darkclaw is fighting Deadpool, he screams out Slade, and Deadpool says, no, it's Wade with a W. But as Deadpool is slamming a dice on top of Darkclaw's head, he's screaming, listen to me. And Deadpool says, listen to you? Why? And he replies with, because I'm Darkclaw, Batman, with a rapid healing factor. And Deadpool says, no need to raise your voice, main character energy much, partner. And Darkclaw explains, it's never too late to win, Deadpool. We need to get her out of our minds. With Deadpool saying, how? He replies with, prep. I don't work alone, and if there's one thing I rely on, it's this. I have a partner who never does what he's told. But outside of this mind world, we see Damian Wayne jump on Cassandra, hitting her in her head. And Batman and Deadpool are able to escape her grasp, with Batman saying, Deadpool to the fortress now. And Deadpool says, order me around some more, and I'm loving the mini-me. So kawaii. And Damian turns around, mini-me, I'm Damian, son of Batman. And Deadpool says, he seems well adjusted. And they're walking through the temple, and Batman says, Deadpool, there. Anyone you know? And we get in quotations the story so far. Cassandra Nova maneuvered Batman into tracking down the lost quantum keyboard. The TVA contracted Deadpool to neutralize/behead Cassandra before she could get her hands on it. And Deadpool says, is it the Phantom stenographer? What are they holding? But before we get to the next moment, if you look closely with the man in the shadow that was saying that quote, Batman is laying at his feet? That's just a small thing to take note of. But then Batman says one of the most dangerous objects in existence. My image of it hidden behind a mental firewall Cassandra couldn't breach. All those clues in the form of keys, the weapon is a cosmic keyboard, rumored to rewrite reality. And we see on the monitor of the cosmic keyboard, Batman saying these exact words. Lost when a minor villain known as the Writer was killed during a disastrous Suicide Squad mission. Victor Gover, aka Sportsmaster, was there that day on that mission. 3 days ago, his fiance was caught in the crossfire when Victor's knowledge became valuable to some ruthless people. And the person with this cosmic keyboard says, smooth exposition, but I can handle it from here. That's the Batman of Earth 7642 at my feet, by the way. You were plotted into Earth 7642 continuity by this old thing. This relic is the MacGuffin everyone's chasing. And we just see this guy holding the cosmic keyboard. But there's multiple crazy references in this one image. So Earth 7642 is known as the crossover Earth. So 20 plus years ago, when Marvel and DC were messing around with a couple different crossover storylines, that's the Earth those storylines took place on and where a lot of the amalgams come from. This is the Earth that basically coincides the Avengers with the Justice League, Marvel and DC living as one. So the Batman at his feet is the Batman from the crossover Earth. So the Batman we've been with this whole storyline and the Damian Wayne is hinted to be the main continuity Batman and Robin, emphasized by his words saying you were plotted into this continuity, and the fact that they're both wearing their current outfits in the DC universe. So that's quite a combination of Easter egg story right there. But that's not the only crazy thing here. The writer actually was a character in the DC universe who lived and died because of the Suicide Squad. More specifically, Suicide Squad issue 58 if you're curious. But the writer as a character is Grant Morrison, putting himself into the DC universe. So even though he died in that Suicide Squad mission, this is Grant Morrison bringing himself back as the writer, which is so freaking cool. But let's continue the storyline. I'm sorry, there's just so much fun stuff in this story that I feel like I have to explain. But Batman says, figured as much. And Deadpool says, the cosmic keytar? Holy crap, Batman. If that thing falls into the wrong hands, it could usher in a nightmare era of Jan Hammer 80s inspired soft rock tyranny. But then Deadpool gets confused, turning to Batman, saying, so wait, rewind, you're what? A way cooler, tougher, sexier Batman than Earth 7642 flat out on his cape here? And Batman just ignores Deadpool, with the writer saying, I won't run from Cassandra Nova or anyone else, only me, and even then, it'll never rewrite canon again, if it works at all. Maybe we could use it to wrap up this adventure and find out what happens. Batman, check. Deadpool, check. Villain, check. Guest. We could probably use a twist around about, and we see Cassandra come out of the shadows and put her hand through the writer's head, saying, see, the thing is, I don't need to make this device work. I'll just dictate and you'll do as you're told. And in quotes, she says, for Batman and Deadpool, time stretched to a standstill. Ha! Next, you're gonna write them as cannibal flesh addicts. Turn them loose on their loved ones. We'll write a horror story, you and I together, where the monsters win. And the writer says, horror? You want horror? Take a good look. And he starts to regain control, with her saying, no, wait, that's impossible. And he replies saying, is it? What if you didn't just appear out of nowhere? What if you were made up on a machine just like this one? And Cassandra Cain loses her control over him saying, ow, why can't I do anything? That can't be. And the writer jokes saying, all out of ideas, Cassandra Nova? Writer's block? They say it happens now and again. Do you want to see what it looks like when I run out of ideas? You broke the bat. You peed on the pool. Now face the music. It goes na 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 DeadBat, a new amalgamation character of Deadpool and Batman. This is such a goofy story, twisting in the Batman theme song to present a brand new amalgam character. So freaking cool. But also between these two sections, we see Eternity and Kismet are still going at it. But DeadBat attacks Cassandra, but we don't get to see the actual fight. Because what we see is her head in a jar, saying A is for Atom, B is for Bomb, C is for Children, D is the new dawn. And Deadpool says she'll live again, she always does. But for now, my work is done. When Earth 7642 Batman finally comes to, I'll be sure to tell him how much I'll treasure my mostly imaginary team up with the real thing. And Batman says, give him my regards. And we see they're both on two separate platforms, but the world is splitting apart. And Deadpool says, it may have been mid to you, but we shared memories I'll savor again and again, alone in the dark. Sayonara, Dark Moonhawk Owl. And then we see Batman talk to the writer. And the writer says, whatever unknown cosmic conjunction triggered the keyboard, it's over. Anyway, the president signed an executive order. They're rebuilding the fourth wall to keep out unwanted ideas, so I can't hang around. I only showed up to grab a souvenir in case I don't get back. And Batman says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then Damian appears, saying she got away. She got a head start and what? And Batman grabs the writer's arm saying, wait, before you go, you said you can't rewrite canon with that thing. What can you do? And we see the words with a final ethereal sigh, as of angels expressing general satisfaction, tinged with mild disappointment. Two universes parted. And we see Kismet and Eternity are done having their good old time. With Eternity saying, so, another time perhaps? As supreme time being, I have all the time. And Kismet replies saying, sure, why not? And they're both on their phone chilling, and Eternity turns to her saying, wait, you dare not rate me? Not yet, we're not done. There was a little ways to go, and all roads lead to Gotham. And we see Victor getting another drink, but he hears a knock at the door saying, what? And he opens the door to his wife being alive saying, honey, how? And Batman's on top of the building saying, happy holidays. The end. Look, I absolutely loved the Zeb Wells, Greg Capullo, Batman Deadpool storyline that came out not too long ago, but this one was just so much fun, dude. I absolutely enjoyed it. The Easter eggs and the conversations connecting to the OG Earth 7642 and all the amalgam characters like Dark Claw being back and a new one with DeadBat. So much fun. So much freaking fun. Of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down below what kind of videos you want to see in the future. But I will say there will be another video tying this storyline together, because just like in the last one, if you saw my previous videos or have any idea of how this crossover has gone, there are some mini stories. In the previous issue, we had a couple like Crypto the Superdog with Jeff the Land Shark. They had a crossover. Or the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Green Lantern Corps. They had a crossover. In this storyline, we have a couple new ones, like Nightwing and Laura Kinney Wolverine and Doctor Strange with Constantine. A couple fun stories in this I'm definitely gonna make a separate video on, so make sure to subscribe, put that notification bell on so when that video is posted, you can also check that out. Thank you guys again. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.